Hi, everyone. I want to do a quick personal and professional exploration of Love Lies Bleeding flower essence. But of course, I first want to honor and acknowledge that I live, move, love, breathe, rest, create, connect on Treaty 6 territory, now known as Edmonton. And I want to express honor and acknowledge that Treaty 6 territory is the original land of diverse Indigenous nations who enriched this place for centuries, long before many of my ancestors arrived here. And I also want to make a special acknowledgement to ancestors that gather around us to provide us with protection, love, support, and guidance at this time. I want to call upon Mother Earth, Father Sky, Grandfather Sun, and Grandmother Moon, collective consciousness, Creator, Great Spirit, Divine Goddess Network, Sacred Universe, and any masters, teachers, healers, guides, helpers, souls, spirits, angels, friends, any past or parallel life helpers or healers, any otherworldly or other dimensional beings that are here to help or heal, any bloodline or ancestral helpers or healers. I would like to call on these presences and invite them into this sharing here now, that they may imbue my words and my sharing with some nugget of value for whoever's watching now, or whoever's eyes will come upon this video, that they may distill something to take away that will lend goodness to their lives. One peace, love, and harmony. Thank you. So Love Lies Bleeding is a really striking flower. If you look at an image of it, it almost looks like the plant itself is bleeding. It's got these long flowers that are vibrant, like kind of fuchsia color, and they come down in long strings, and it very much looks like the plant might be bleeding. It's pretty cool. And Love Lies Bleeding as a flower essence was prepared. I want to honor my forerunners and the creators of this. Love Lies Bleeding was prepared as an essence in the beautiful Terra Flora Gardens in Nevada City in California by Patricia Kaminsky and Richard Kotz, who are the founders of the Flower Essence Society, the bulk of whose essences I use in my practice. And it is for transcendence. Transcendence from over-identification or personalization of one's pain and suffering. And as human beings, we do tend towards dragging along behind us laboriously our suffering and our struggle and our pain. And we identify with that. We drag our pain and our suffering along with us, and we identify ourselves with this pain and suffering and our challenging experiences from the past. And Love Lies Bleeding imparts the capacity to rise above and to see a larger sphere of opportunity, learning, and potential and healing that actually comes from challenging experiences. And when we can rise above and take almost like a bird's eye view, then we can gain greater and more expansive perspective so that more meaning comes into our suffering and our challenging experiences. And when we're able to make meaning and to assign value to our pain, then that's when it becomes a healing experience. So I want to share a bit of a personal experience. I'm just rounding off the end of a cycle with Love Lies Bleeding myself. And I had a dream last week about a friend, a former friend who, going on 12 or more years now, assaulted me. And so usually if I dream about this person or think about him or see him, because we do have some crossover in our communities, I would experience that as being a very painful trigger. It would trigger a trauma response and lots of difficult emotions associated to that traumatic experience. And now I've done a lot of work on that. I've received a lot of counseling, both one-on-one as well as in a group scenario. And I've used a lot of different healing modalities to help me process and navigate that trauma. So for sure I've done that. And I think everyone that experiences trauma should not just use flower essences. They're a great adjunct to other healing support. So usually I would experience having a dream about him, because I have in the past, as being a trigger into the traumatic experience that I would then identify with, right? And in a moment, this new perspective washed over me. And now this is precisely how flower essences can work in this beautiful, miraculous way. In a moment, sometimes they can just cause us to have a total a new perspective, a new expansive perspective can wash over us in a moment, allowing us to experience a wholly new perspective on the same thing. And that's one of the beauties of the medicines. And so in a moment, I had this perspective wash over me, and my internal dialogue went something like this. Roberta, what if he wasn't a trigger? What if you could rise above or transcend the trigger and the pain, and then gather a whole bunch of information from this dream beyond just that was triggering? What if it wasn't triggering? Then what kind of information could you gather from the dream? And in that moment, of course, I was able to think about the dream and experience it and perceive it in a totally different way that was expansive. And I could see the symbology of the dream that encouraged me to consider the possibility that this person has done some healing over the years. How do I know? How do I know they haven't done some healing? And I could also see how this person had come in as a soul in my life to reflect for me the need for the healing of the masculine in me and in the world. I could see how this person brought contrast into my life, and that sometimes healing and balance comes through contrast if we can but ascend the suffering. And in that moment, I could ascend the suffering, and I could see the possibility of healing and growth and evolution through something that was a horrible experience at the time. And none of this justifies the incident. It was not okay. It's not okay to assault people. That's not what this is about. But when we're able to ascend, when I was able in that moment to ascend the suffering, to rise above the suffering, to not just identify with the suffering and the pain, then my whole experience could expand, and it drew me closer to inner peace and freedom that is forgiveness. So fucking beautiful. So I circle back to Love Lies Bleeding, which is specifically for treating an over-identification with and an over-personalization of pain, suffering, and struggle, either in current day or from the past that we're dragging along with us. And it imparts the ability to rise above, transcend, or ascend the suffering experience so as to expand perspectives and possibilities, and to see healing and to see the greater meaning of the difficult experience, to see the greater meaning, thereby helping to give it some value, which allows healing from the struggle. Love Lies Bleeding. Thanks for listening.